So I'm Jennifer Bishop-Jenkins, and this is Dory, my Australian Shepherd. She's a show dog, and she's 2 years old. My husband and I have had her since she was a puppy. And we are champion. She is champion pointed, and we will continue to show her and breed her probably this year. So one of the things that we talk about in the 15 coat types is dogs like this that have the natural coat. This is a double-coated breed, but it's of the medium length. And so there is some trimming that you can do at the ears, at the feet, at the tail, and around some of the private areas to be, just to neaten them up. But for the most part, your double-coated breeds, you're not going to want to do any trimming or clippering ever, because you really need to protect these outer guard hairs. These are the coat hairs that provide the structure. A double coat has really two kinds of coat, and they're on completely different growing cycles. There's the outer guard hairs that provide the structure of the coat and the protection for the undercoat, and the outer guard hairs are the ones that grow very slowly, and they don't replace well if they were ever cut. But the undercoat is really what you want to get out. And so you can notice when you have a double-coated dog like this, you know, you're going to just use a good comb and a good brush, and you're going to get undercoat. And that's what your job is as a groomer, is to keep the undercoat at bay, because the undercoat will grow in and fall out and grow in and fall out very quickly because of the fact that they, you know, they shed and they adjust their coat for the season. So the Australian Shepherd is a dog that does get some trimming, and one of the areas that we trim is the ears. And you can see her ears are pretty fuzzy. They haven't been trimmed in a while. The ear is supposed to be triangular. When it's folded and falls forward, it's supposed to have a sort of a rounded triangular point. And so we don't want to do much at the tip of the ear except just to thin it a little bit using a thinning shear, and always towards the tip for safety, always towards the tip, and always have your fingers around the edge of the ear for safe protection. And you're going to thin the edges towards that rounded triangular tip, and maybe even scissor if you want a really neat edge. Yep, there you go. And then we're going to kind of round that triangular tip. And then with all of these hairs down here, we're going to thin this out so that the ear lays really nicely. You're very interested in what's going on outside, aren't you? Australian Shepherds are very, very intelligent. Okay, so you'll notice this feathering here. You never want to thin cross grain. You always want to scissor and thin with the grain, so in the direction that the hair grows. And then underneath the ear, but you don't want to go too short. You still want to leave some natural hair. This is supposed to look natural. It's not supposed to look trimmed or thinned. And then I'm going to check my shape and make sure I have a nice rounded triangle here. And you can see the difference between the ungroomed ear and the groomed ear. It still looks very natural, but it just lays better, and it has a neater edge to it. Okay? So I'll do this other side too. And I'm getting all this undercoat out as well, but I'm thinning up so that the ear will lay and fold nicely. And I'm going to do my edges. And I'm always scissoring towards the tip of the ear. And I'm keeping my fingers along the edge of the ear for safety. Hold still, Dory. Hold still. And then I'm going to thin out some of this stuff back here. So that the ears lay flat. And then when she's alert, that you get a nice, neat, rounded triangle edge on the ear. Okay, so that's the Australian Shepherd ear. Now let's talk about their feet. They do have the same kind of a foot style that you would have on a Golden Retriever or a Newfoundland. It's called a cat foot. Oh, I know you're excited. So the cat foot is the foot that is, here, can you stand? Stand, Dory. The cat foot is a high flat and then a drop. And you can see her foot is very fuzzy right now. So what we want to do is get rid of some of this fuzz here. And we want to still keep this high flat top and a sharp drop downward, showing that there's a good arch to the toe bones there, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is take a sanitary clipper to the underneath side of her foot. I'm going to take a sani clipper and just take off some of this excess fur. In between the toes. But I'm very careful when I clip not to take the hair out of this part of the pad, the big pad and the front pads, because I want to make sure that when I set the foot down, there's a nice smooth line going around that corner, okay? That's a girl. And then I'm going to set the corner. Stand up. It's a good girl. Stand up. It's a good girl. And then I'm going to scissor straight down over the top using a curved scissor, emphasizing this high arch of the foot. Hold still. Hold still, Dory. Down, concentrating on the edges. Then I'm going to pick the foot up and I'm going to neaten up the line along the table. Stand. That's a good girl. Stand. Stand. And then I'm going to use thinning shears, stop, to just blend it in nicely at the toes. And so I want a nice, clean edge to the foot. Hold still. And particularly important from the side view is this turn of the foot up into the pastern, okay? And then you want to neaten up all of your little stringy fuzzies so that it has a really clean basis. Thank you. Yes, I like kisses. Stand up. You can tell Dory is still a puppy. Now for a pet, you might actually want to do something trimming with this down here, but she's a show dog and we are not going to trim that, okay? All right, then similarly on the back foot, you're going to be doing something with this area called the hock, this hair back here. So once again, I'm going to take a 10 blade and clean up the bottom of the foot, just on the center of it. Stand up. Stand, Dory. And then I'm going to scissor the edges of the foot. From the bottom, from the underneath. And I'm just going to lay the scissor right on the back pad and just go straight up. Stay, Dory. Stay, Dory. She wants to sit. And go straight up from there. You don't want to cut this hock hair too much. You want it to be natural, but you also want a nice clean line back there. And then just the same as the front foot, a curved scissor down. A curved scissor straight down. All around the foot. And then from underneath, a very clean edge along the ground, along the table. Stay, stand. Good girl. Stay, stand. Dory, stand, stay. Good girl. And then thinning shear to clean up the blending on the top here. And again, very picky about any little string sticking out, so that the foot looks very tight on the bottom and clean, the line. And then this line around the outside edge should just round straight up into the hock. Stand, sweetie. That's a good girl. So that you've got a high, stand, Dory, stand. So you've got a high foot with a drop and a very clean edge around the table here. Stand, that's a good girl, stand. And so you want that nice flow up into the hock hairs there. Okay? And we don't ever do any trimming on the torso. We just will style the hair. We want the back to lay down. And you know, Australian Shepherds do sometimes have, a tendency toward waviness. In the show ring, we'll actually take a chamois, a damp chamois, and lay it over their back until right before they go in the ring to kind of keep their back flat lying. But the one more thing we have to do here, I'm going to turn her around a little bit, is we have to show her tail because she has a very hairy tail right now. Of course, most Australian Shepherds have the shorter bobtail. That was an early name for the breed, the bobtail. And the tail is naturally bobbed. Some puppies are born that way. Some of them are docked. Dory was docked. And one of the things you want it to do is smile at you. You actually want the Australian Shepherd tail to, as they're walking away from you, it really looks like a smile. So let me see if I can turn her. There you go. That's a good girl. So in order to achieve that effect, I'm just going to, again, take my curved scissor. I'm going to find her rectum, okay, which is buried deep within there. Lay the comb. Here, stay. Turn. That's a good girl. Stay. You're laying the scissor, the curved scissor, parallel to the rectum, okay? And you're going to cut a semicircle with the curved scissor. straight outward, 90-degree angle outward from the body. Okay? So that you actually do reveal the line directly to the rectum. And then you're going to take your thinning shear and you're going to help shape the Aussie smile, as they call it, which is stand, stand, good girl, stand, good girl. So up on the edges to give it that semicircular shape. And we don't do anything to trim her furnishings unless she has really bad sticky outs on her coat. But thinning, shearing, and curved scissor. Yeah, you're doing good, Dory. You're doing good, honey. Hold still. That's a good girl. No, she says, I don't like standing sideways on the table. And then as they walk away from you, you can see that very distinctive semicircular shape. It's always shown off by their coloring as well. They always have some white furnishings right around the area under their tails. So, and that's all I would do for the show ring. The ears, the feet, and the tail, and then I'm going to do a lot of training of the coat, blow drying it so that the back lays flat, and a lot of good de-shedding of the undercoat, removing all of this undercoat. But this is a natural breed that we want to show naturally. And we don't ever want to cut this, because if you start cutting the top coat on these breeds, then the coat on the top and the coat on the underneath get imbalanced, and it can actually, the outer guard hairs can go dormant. It can forever change the texture and the appearance of the coat. So this is a natural breed, and enjoy. I'm going to show you in a minute an Australian Shepherd who is older and spayed and has profuse coat, and we definitely do some trimming of the belly and the pantaloons on her as well.